In this week's commentary, Jason Rosenbaum goes back in time. He looks at how some previous decades are remembered, and then asks the question, what will define the current time period? Will it be the recession? Here's his take.
I don't pretend to be a spokesperson for the 80s generation, but I think I can safely say that this nation has come a long way since the advent of the Rubik's Cube. Perhaps this relationship was best exemplified in an event that took place this past weekend. The concept was simple: slap together a tire from the 1980s and run around downtown. Beyond getting a good dose of exercise, participants were meant to be a jarring anachronism against the modern conventions of downtown Columbia. The event probably won't be remembered for philosophical depth, but it did serve as a fascinating juxtaposition between the 1980s and the current times. One thing I noticed in my sweaty haze was that it seemed that material and cultural items are the most popular artifacts from this decade. Michael Jackson, Alf, and leg warmers are probably attached to the decade among normal folks far more than the end of the Cold War, 3 Mile Island, or nuclear disarmament movements. In a strange way, I feel the reverse will be true for this decade. Sure, the 00s have produced revolutions in cell phone technology and the way we communicate with each other online. It's hard to imagine those things overtaking the 9/11 attacks, the Iraq War, and the current economic calamity in terms of seminal cultural symbols. In many ways, this decade has shown how hard-hitting events seemingly far away can affect people close to home. 9/11, for example, centered our minds on terrorism and domestic security. The Iraq War brought about deep questions about the extent of American power and the morality of military force. And the current recession is showcasing how silver bullets don't always drive hard times into the ground. Despite implementation of a package aimed at stimulating the economy, our nation's economic fortunes continue to worsen. Instead of rapid recovery that was experienced after recessions in the early 1990s and the early 2000s, America is facing the possibility of experiencing long-term economic decline that has been seen since the 1930s or the 1970s. As I've said before, I'm convinced our economic problems will eventually be conquered. History has yet to point to a downturn that's lasted for decades, but the harsh realities of the times are going to be more lasting, in my opinion, than any song, movie star, or garment of clothing. I'm Jason Rosenbaum.
You can check out a photo of Jason and all the 80s runners on our website at KBIA.org. Thanks for tuning in for this week's Talking Politics. Have a great day. I'm Sarah Whitmire.